Jai Jai Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
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 Jai Jai Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
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 Hare Krishna. Because we are coming closer to the most important day in our Vaishnava calendar, next to a couple of others, as example Jamastami and Radhastami and Vyasa Puja. Yeah, we are very opulent. Huh? We have so many wonderful festival days. But actually, Gaur Purnima is the most important of all of them, next to Radhastami and Jamastami. Yeah, it's very difficult. You can start a whole discussion. What is the most important? But yeah, Gaur Purnima is definitely very important. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared 1486 on this day in the month of Falguna. Yeah, we are in the Vedic month of Falguna, and it's the Purnima day, so it's the exact middle of the month. Yeah, Vedic month is going from Amavasya to more or less Amavasya, meaning new moon to new moon, or the last day then before the new moon. Yeah, new moon is the first day in the moon calendar, and in the middle of this period of 30 days is Purnima, or the full moon, right? Everyone knows, right? We have a moon, and and the moon is always looking different because it's changing its size. And it's interesting to measure time according to the moon. Actually, it's very nice. It's interesting. So solar calendar, of course, works also. Yeah, there's also a point to that. But the moon you can see more, right? You can see the change better. So it's nice to measure time according to the moon phases. And there are 30 days in a moon calendar, a moon month. And in Vedic times, they had also 12 months. Yeah, so and we are now in the month of, it's called Falguna. And Mahaprabhu appeared in the month of Falguna on the Purnima day. So every year when this month of Falguna comes, then we have Mahaprabhu's appearance day. So, and on Sunday we have this wonderful day, and it's nice that we already prepare to celebrate then his appearance. We all more or less are from Christian background, so it's very common, very normal to, when they come closer to their most holy day, which is Christmas, right, the appearance of their Lord, they prepare 1 month before already. It's called the Advent time. Right? I don't know how it's called in English. Advent? Huh? Is it in English also? Because we say Advent. Yeah? Advent. Well, Advent means like the appearance. From Latin, right? It comes from Latin. Advent. Adventare or something probably. I had Latin once a long time ago. So yeah, so this is common to the spiritual traditions or religions that they have. Right? They celebrate the appearance of their most important person. The most important book in connection with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is, of course, the Chaitanya Charitamrita. It's a very big book, as you can see, consisting of the pastimes of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. I will read from the 17th chapter of the Madhya Lila. It's entitled "The Lord Travels to Vrindavan." And we read this verse, I will read the purport, and then I will summarize the chapter until this point. I will tell what was happening before and why was this verse coming up. I found this verse by accident. I was supposed to give the lecture today, and I thought, okay, what will I read from Chaitanya Charitamrita? I just took one book and I more or less opened and searched for a verse which sounded interesting, and this came up. So there was not some specific logic behind why I chose this verse. And I found this verse and it sounded interesting, definitely. And I thought, okay, let's talk about that. Okay, so it's the verse 184. Brabhu kahe shruti smriti yata rishigana.
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 Sabe eka mata nahe bhinna bhinna dharma.
Sabe eka mata nahe bhinna bhinna dharma.
Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu replied, the Vedas, Puranas, and great learned sages are not always in agreement with one another. Consequently, they are different religious principles. Purport. Unless one comes to the absolute truth, there is no possibility of agreement. Nazaf rishir yasya matam na bhinam. It is said that a great learned scholar or sage cannot be exalted unless he disagrees with other scholars and sages. On the material platform, there is no possibility of agreement. Therefore, there are different kinds of religious systems. But the absolute truth is one. And when one is situated in the absolute truth, there is no disagreement. On that absolute platform, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is worshipable. As stated in Bhagavad Gita 1855, Bhaktya mama vijanati yavanyas-chasmi tattvataha. On the absolute platform, the worshipful deity is one, and the process of worship is also one. That process is bhakti. There are many different religions throughout the world because they are not all on the absolute platform of devotional service. As confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita 1866, Sarva dharma parityaja mam ekam sharanam vraja. The word ekam means one, Krishna. On this platform, there are no different religious systems. According to Srimad Bhagavatam 112, Dharma prochita kaitavotra. On the material platform, religious systems are different. Srimad Bhagavatam describes them from the very beginning as Dharma kaitavaha, cheating religions. None of these religions is actually genuine. The genuine religious system is that which enables one to become a lover of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In the words of Srimad Bhagavatam 126, Savai pungsang bharo dharmo yato bhaktira dokshache ahaitukiya pratiyata yayatma suprasidati. The supreme occupation, dharma, for all humanity is that by which man can attain to loving devotional service unto the transcendent Lord. Such devotional service must be unmotivated and uninterrupted in order to completely satisfy the self. On this platform there is nothing but the service of the Lord. When a person has no ulterior motive, there is certainly oneness and agreement of principles, since everyone has a different body and mind. Different types of religions are needed. But when one is situated on the spiritual platform, there are no bodily and mental differences. Consequently, on the absolute platform, there is oneness in religion. Om Agyanatimirandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chakshumilitamina Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangung Langayati Girim Yat Kripata Mahang Vande Shri Gurun Dinataranam Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swavadantikam Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadada Shiva Sadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Okay, verse again. Brabhu kai shruti smiti yata rishigana sabe eka mata nahe bhinna bhinna dharma. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu replied, the Vedas, Puranas and great learned sages are not always in agreement with one another. Consequently, there are different religious principles. Okay. So, Hare Krishna. I find it interesting to read, find out or research the context of a certain verse right? There are different kinds of studying the Shastra. I would say one is in a horizontal way and one in a vertical way. Horizontal way means, or let's say vertical way is kind of when we just read Prabhupada's books. Of course, there's a vertical way of studying, but when we read, it's kind of more vertical, meaning you have a shloka and then it goes down, right? Vertical. It goes down. And the horizontal ways means there's a shloka and there's a shloka before, a shloka before, a shloka before, and a shloka afterwards. And when we just read Prabhupada's books, I think most of you sometimes had the experience, especially when the purports are very long, that we kind of lose the storyline. Sometimes it's like that, no? Actually, who is talking there? And why is he talking about it, right? And we kind of understand the verse itself because we read the purport, we kind of understanding of it, but sometimes we lose the context. That's called context. What is actually where is it embedded? So I like to look at from both sides of right from both sides. So we could now go very much into detail of this verse. There was so much inside, but I want to give now the context and also to bring some lila inside. And it's a very interesting verse, right? Mahaprabhu says there is difference between Shruti, Smriti and the Rishigana, the sages. There's difference amongst them. And we kind of think, wait a minute, actually, no, we don't want that. We want it to say union, right? There's unity, and there's one opinion, and there's one truth. This is one of the, I think, attractive things in Krishna consciousness, that it's a one concept, right? And it answers all our questions. And when there are more answers to one of our questions, we become bewildered, right? So we don't like it, right? We like it's simple in one sense. But actually, the more we go into Krishna consciousness, the more we see that it's not so simple. And there are also sometimes more answers to one question, which is no problem, it's okay. Yeah, we shouldn't be bewildered by that. But anyway, but here, Mahaprabhu himself says it, and then we might wonder, why is he saying it? So I want to go now a bit into detail of this verse, but actually we go far beyond that verse too, because I want to tell the story of 184 verses. Because we are in 184th verse, and I want to kind of summarize this chapter a bit, and then see also, so this is a very broad context, yes, but it's interesting. So the chapter is called The Lord Travels to Vrindavan. Okay. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu left, as we know, Navadvip area. Why was he leaving Navadvip?
Sannyas.
Yeah, he took sannyas, right? He took sannyas. And when in Vedic, it's a Vedic principle, when you take, actually there are different kinds of sannyas. There are 4 kinds of sannyas, I forgot all the names. But one kind of sannyas is that you kind of live still in the area of your village, kind of outside of your village, and your relatives, they bring you something to eat and things like this. There's also a sannyas like that. But the sannyas, what we also always hear, and what is kind of the main, style of sannyas. Yeah, one was Kutichaka and Bahutaka and no, Kshetrasana is something different. Kutichaka, Bahutaka, the highest was then Paramahamsa, and I forgot one other one. Huh? Oh, was it Parivrajaka Khacharya? I think, yeah, Parivrajaka Khacharya, it's true. And you say, what was that, what I mentioned? This was the Kutichaka. Was this one?
Kuti is in something house.
Yeah. Kutir, yeah.
Side of the village, and still life can go to you.
Yeah.
Bring some perspective.
Yeah, so it's, she can bring kind of a sannyas, yeah. There are also different ways of brahmacharya, right? Yeah, there's brahmacharya for 1 week. Sometimes it's that. Keep no sex life for 1 week. It's kind of a brahmacharya. And for 1 month, for 1 year. So it's interesting. Okay, so Mahaprabhu took sannyas and he left his hometown. This was in 1510. when he was 24 years old. And he took sannyas in Katwa, which is not too far away from Mayapur. So, and then he went to Jagannath Puri, and after he was in when he went to Puri, he quite soon he left again for a long travel to South India, and when he came back, he wanted to go to Vrindavan. This was actually his one of his main desires. He made an attempt to go to Vrindavan, but it didn't work out because of a reason which is also mentioned in this chapter. He came back to Jagannath Puri, and then for some time he always tried to leave again for Vrindavan, but it somehow or rather didn't work out. And on one point, and this is how this chapter starts, he really wants to go to Vrindavan now, and he calls his two most intimate associates, Ramananda Roy and Swarup Damodar, and in a secluded place he says to them, please give me your blessings to leave for Vrindavan, which is interesting because why should he ask someone? But he was very attached to his devotees and he didn't want to upset them and he wanted their permission. Yeah, and they said, you can actually do whatever you like. You don't have to ask us. You are the supreme independent Lord. You don't have to ask us. But we have one request. Yeah, so they saw they couldn't keep him anymore in Puri, so they had a request. And Mahaprabhu said, actually, tomorrow, very early in the morning, it said incognito, meaning disguised, I will leave Puri and please give me your permission. And they said, okay, it sounds now really serious. Okay, yes, no problem, whatever you like, but we have one request. Please take someone with you, don't go alone. We're very worried for you. It's a long travel from Puri to Vrindavan. It's very long, and he is not taking a flight, right, or a car or something. He's walking. And it's a huge distance. I don't know, it's maybe 2,000 kilometers or something. I don't know, something like this. It's really long. And at that time, but it's an interesting concept also, right? Yeah, it celebrate. Where was it? I was hearing recently, yesterday, I think, in the 11th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. It was the story of, I think, the Avanti Brahmana. Someone remembers, China Singadev. And there also, I think, one part in the Bhagavatam, and then he was happily saying, and finally I can leave home. He was not lamenting. He was saying, finally I can leave everything behind and can freely travel throughout the world. But not for sightseeing, but just for, being freely engaged in Krishna consciousness. He was celebrating that. Yeah. So it's a nice concept, especially in a time where it was more easy to travel probably, or not really, maybe not easy, but maybe the social setup was supporting that, right? There comes a sannyas, you get something to eat. It was not a problem in that sense. Yeah, and the weather was okay, right? Nowadays to travel, to sleep outside, it's not so easy, yeah? Let's say in our area. But at that time, for a sannyasi, freely go wherever you like, you just need something to eat, you lie down wherever you like, and if you can live like that, right, it's actually nice. The less you need, the happier you are actually. The more you need, the more you have, the more entanglement, and the more, it's in a machine. The more complicated a machine is, the more chance that something will break. And then you have a problem. Because if just some small part breaks, the whole thing doesn't work anymore. So this is material life. The more complicated it gets, the more, anfällig. Who knows? Anfällig in English? It's more, nobody? What means it is? More fragile kind of, the more fragile it is. So Mahaprabhu wanted to travel this huge distance to Vrindavan, and so they said, please take someone with you. We are worried about you. Who will take care of you? And Mahaprabhu said, okay, no problem, someone can come, but none of my devotees. Interesting, huh? He said, none of my inner devotees, because if I choose one, the others will not be happy. Not that they are envious because they're very pure, but somehow or other they might think, oh, I would have liked to go. Or somehow or other he meant, must be kind of an outsider. Someone who's a little bit, distant. And then they recommended one. His name was Balabhadra Bhattacharya. This was then his servant, Balabhadra Bhattacharya. And I don't know so much the details of the social rankings at the time, but it seems Bhattacharya, because also Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, meaning that was kind of a high title, right? Bhattacharya was a high title. We hear many names in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, many titles like Pandit or Gosai, Goswami, or later we hear about the Sanodiya, Brahmana. So and all this were actually rankings in the social positions, right? Tapana Mishra, like Mishra, or Kaviraj. Huh? So the more we read Chaitanya Charitamrita, the more we understand also a bit this social system, which is quite different than ours nowadays actually. And it was very stiff also, right? It was very important who you were and with whom you dealt and with whom you, right, had some association. So like the caste system actually, right? Very strong caste system. So Balabhadra Bhattacharya. So it seems to me that's kind of a high person, but he took a very menial position to serve Mahaprabhu, which shows already why Mahaprabhu is Mahaprabhu. He's the great master, he's the master of all masters. So they chose him, and they said he's please take one very nice Brahmana with you. He will collect alms for you, cook for you, give you prasadam and carry your water pot while traveling. So very menial service he will do. But then they said, and please take another one. So kind of they sneaked another one in who never appears in name. And he also is not much mentioned. And another one, he was kind of very menial servant. He carried the cloth of Mahaprabhu and this water pot. Yeah. The water pot is very important. Because water is very important, right? You always have your water with you. Especially if you are traveling, right? We know how important water is. So he was carrying the water pot. So the Balabhadra Bhattacharya, he was collecting alms, meaning he was taking care that Mahaprabhu had everything to eat. And he was cooking it. Because cooking is a very intimate service. A very intimate service. We nowadays, especially in our society, nobody cares. You cook whatever you can eat more. You eat whatever you can cook, or you eat whatever you can get. Like from the street. Eat whatever you like, not considering. But later we hear an interesting point also. The higher you were in this social setting, the more you were looking who will cook for me. Not anybody can cook for me. Right? Very, very interesting. So it's very important who will cook. So he was collecting the alms, meaning he was going from door to door begging. So they were not buying things. They had to beg. Where you get, okay, either begging or collecting from the forest or looking what is there to eat and then preparing for Mahaprabhu. Because Mahaprabhu had to eat. It was 2,000 kilometers. I don't know how long they were traveling. Probably some scholars know. Maybe you can design the whole Leela and find out how long they were traveling. But it must have been, I don't know, weeks. Weeks. And Mahaprabhu is of course the Lord who doesn't need anything, but at the same time he played the Leela. He needed something to eat. And later on we hear also he was warming himself with some fire, what they collected wood from the forest and they heated themselves. No? And he was cooking. So these necessities, they had to be taken care of. And this is why the two devotees said, please take someone. You will do all that alone? Of course he can do, but they were right concerned. So here is Balabhadra Bhattacharya, who has great love for you. He is an honest, learned scholar, and he is advanced in spiritual consciousness. In the beginning, he came with you from Bengal. So he's from Bengal. And it is his desire to visit and see all the holy places of pilgrimage. In addition, you may take another Brahmana who will act as a servant en route and make arrangements for your food. If you can also take him with you, we will be very happy. If two people go with you through the jungle, there will certainly be no difficulty or inconvenience. Thus Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu accepted the request of Swarup Damodar Pandit and agreed to take Balabhadra Bhattacharya with him. So, okay, he agreed, that is fine. And then the next morning, Mahaprabhu did, very early in the morning, he left for this travel. And then all the devotees woke up and recognized Mahaprabhu is gone. And they were really worried and concerned and sad. And there was a whole uproar in the community, because we can see Mahaprabhu, he took Puri in storm, or by storm. He took Puri by storm. When he appeared there in 1510, he converted Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya to, Prabhupada says, his cult, right? To him, more or less. And Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was one of the most, maybe even the most important person of whole Puri, because he was like the greatest scholar in Puri, and he was very close to the king. And Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was not, he was like, later on we hear also Prakashananda Saraswati Thakur, he was kind of making joke of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, because Prakashananda is also a great scholar, and anyway, this comes later then. But he was saying, yeah, and also Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya also became a little bit mad, because Mahaprabhu is mad and he makes everyone mad, with this madness. So, but when Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya became a devotee of Mahaprabhu and said, Mahaprabhu is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, people took it serious. It was not that they said he's become crazy now, he is now in a cult. He's now in a secte. And the king, who has never seen Mahaprabhu, maybe heard about him, of course, he was convinced just from that fact that my greatest scholar in town, he is a devotee. That means this must be true. This was the worth of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya's just conviction. And this is why Prataparudra Maharaj wanted to eagerly meet the Lord, right? If one very dear friend of yours who is very respectable, very intelligent, this and that, and tells you, I met God, and you are, he's not crazy. He's like, really? I also want to meet God. Yeah. So he took Puri by storm, because then the king was a devotee and Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was a devotee, and he brought great personalities, and more or less the whole town became, Mahaprabhu conscious. And when he was suddenly gone, anyway, he was a long time gone for the other travels, so suddenly was gone. Especially his dear devotees, the inner circle of his most beloved devotees, they were very, very sad. And they said here, they began to search for him everywhere. Yes, look, where could he be? And he went to this temple and this house and that house. Everywhere they were searching for him. Yeah. But then Swarup Damodar is the secretary of Mahaprabhu. He was like one of his main servants, most intimate servants, so to say. He had a very important role. And it's actually said we have the information about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, especially in Puri, because of him. Because he wrote some notes, and he had a diary. Which unfortunately got lost. But the devotees who studied that told this to Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami. And this is why we have Chaitanya Charitamrita. Because Swarup Damodar was the closest associate of Mahaprabhu. He knew him the best. And he was a friend of him since childhood, I think. He was in Bengal with him. And then he went to Varanasi, he studied there and took sannyas there. After Mahaprabhu also took sannyas, he also took sannyas. And then he came to Puri. So Swarup Damodar, he knew what's going on and he consoled everyone. And then it said here, Nivrita Hanna Rahe Sabe Jani Prabhu Raman. They understood, Swarup Damodar, the mind of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He understood, okay, that's fine. So, and now what happens is a long description of Mahaprabhu's travels through the Charikanda forest, which is one of the most exciting, I think, one of the most exciting parts of the whole Chaitanya Charitamrita. Prabhupada also explains Charikanda's forest is a huge area. Even nowadays, is it a state? Mm-hmm. It's a whole state, right? It's called Charikand. Huh? Charikand is a state in India. And it's more, I don't know nowadays if it's still only forest, but at that time, Prabhupada said it was like a forest. And it's a huge forest. It was not just some, like our forests here, these are only Baumplantagen. Yeah, we are living in the Bavarian forest, but more or less there are no forests. Forests are like deep forest, like jungle, right? Wild, right? Even the word jungle is coming from Sanskrit, not from Hindi. I forgot where is it coming from. But, huh?
Chandra, yeah.
Jungler. Yeah, when you say jungle. Dschungel, in Deutsch sagt man Dschungel, der Dschungel. Comes from this, actually, from Indian word. Dschungel is an Indian word. So it was a huge jungle. And what's going on in the jungle? I've never been to a jungle, actually. You have been to a jungle, of course. South America is known for its Regenwald. And Regenwald. Yeah. And it's dangerous, especially because of wild animals. So we are living in Bavarian forest, but we are never afraid of animals here. I heard some wolves are running around a bit, but maybe in Dreißesselberg or something like this. But sometimes I was walking with my wife through the forest and I thought, what would we do if a wolf would come now? We had the dog with us. I said, I'm not afraid of a wolf. What can a wolf do? But then she explained to me, no, if there's one wolf in front of you, there are three behind you. They have their tactic. So they are okay. Maybe we have bears here. No, not really. No, we don't have bears here. And previously there were bears. So anyway, Indian forest is different because India, so much variety of animals, and where are they living? They are living not in the city. They are living in the forest. So now what is explained very nicely that Mahaprabhu walks to this. He entered Charikant forest. It's here said he thus kept the city of Cuttack on his right as he entered the forest. I don't know what is the city of Cuttack. Is it Cuttack? Now it is Cuttack.
Again, just north of Bhubaneswar.
Okay, there it is. Yeah, and there he's entered the forest. So there it starts Charikant, and at that time at least. It's a nice geographical description. And there he entered the forest. And then long time they were in the forest. Days and days and days and days. And Mahaprabhu was just ecstatic. That's also interesting. Right now, if we would travel, we would be excited. We would be, this, that, I don't know. But Mahaprabhu was just ecstatic the whole time. And this is also why the devotees wanted servants for him, because he was too ecstatic. They also said, you will fall in ecstasy, then you lie for hours on the ground, be in, Vrindavan, in eternal consciousness, then you get up and, what do you want to do? You cannot function in one sense, right? He was too, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Yeah, he was really like this. And the two servants were always behind him when he made kirtan all the time. It's very easy. Life can be very easy if you do kirtan all the time. Why don't we do kirtan all the time, right? It's always the question. No? Mahaprabhu brought this present of the holy name and we are not accepting it really. So he was just ecstatic and the two behind him. And then of course this nice description how the animals came. And it said Balabhadra Bhattacharya was very afraid. Yeah? And even though they were just deer, you are not really afraid of a deer, but maybe if it's a male deer and hirsch, how's it called, a stag, or how was it called in English? Yeah, can be frightening. With these big horns and all that. But these were not only deers and stags; they also came, how's it called, porcupine. Porcupine was a Stachelschwein, oder? Porcupine, Stachelschwein, ein Stachelschwein. Yeah, and they also. These are actually dangerous. Also in our forests are the how do you call it? How do you call it? I forgot. Wildschweine. Yeah, Wildschweine. Wildschweine can be actually dangerous in the forest. Right. And I think they were also mentioned rhinoceros. Rhinoceros are very dangerous. They are very mad. They are huge. They can weigh either 1 ton or something, 2 tons. They're heavier than the Sankirtan van. Yeah, and bigger. Yeah, not bigger. So anyway, this came, and then there came also elephants. And at one point later, I will not read everything, it's just too long. Mahaprabhu was in the water, and was chanting his Gayatri in the water, and suddenly a herd of, it said mad elephants came. And it said mad elephants is like they're wild, and they're also kind of furious and angry, and they attack everyone. And they came where Mahaprabhu was chanting his Gayatri. And Mahaprabhu looked at them, he splashed them with the water. Hare Krishna! And they started chanting Hare Krishna and went away. It's there, right? It's in Charitamrita. Yeah. I was reading a couple of days ago about Narottam Das Thakur. It's called Narottam Vilas. It's the life description of Narottam Das Thakur. And also he had once an encounter with a mad elephant. And this mad elephant was feared and crazy and dangerous and killed people and destroyed villages. And then there was one Muslim king. And he heard about Narottam, and he was, I don't know if he was a Muslim, but anyway, some king, and he was very envious of Narottam. And he said, I don't believe that he's a saint. Because actually Narottam was from a Vaishya community or something. And he was not allowed, according to, caste system, to initiate Brahmanas. This was actually one of the biggest criticism against Narottam Das Thakur, that he was like, he was not allowed to initiate, and he initiated Brahmanas because he was exceptionally pure devotee. So and this person was very, very envious, and he said, I will only accept him if he can subdue this elephant. And then it's described how Narottam Das Thakur did it. That this elephant came and he was not afraid, and I think he preached to the elephant actually. Actually he preached, yeah, it's true. Why are you doing like this? Why are you making all this trouble? Why are you in Maya? Yeah, really, why are you in Maya? You are a spiritual soul, don't be. And then the elephant, he actually offered obeisances and then became very peaceful. And then the king said, wow. Huh?
He was being initiated.
How he initiated him. Gopal.
He came again every year for his lectures.
Oh, yeah, right. right. So this is the power of pure devotee, right? Narottam Das Thakur also amazing. Nice that we actually have recordings of these events, right? Who could know? Who could think about it? So Mahaprabhu meets all these elephants and these animals, and actually also tigers came. So I think tigers are very fearsome, right? Tigers, tough, right? I only know two Krishna jokes, but one is about a tiger. So devotee, Sankirtan devotee, of course, walks through the forest, and suddenly a tiger comes. So those who know the joke don't say anything, okay? So a tiger comes. What is the Sankirtan devotee doing? To escape the situation.
Give a book.
He's praying to Krishna, he gives a book, yes, good direction, yes. So if he gives a book, he automatically prays to Krishna, of course, so, yeah. Who is another? Huh? Ninjagana Sankirtan devotee, what would you do? Are you tiger from this forest or that forest? You bewilder him. I don't know where I'm coming from. Huh? Pray to Nrsimha. Of course he preaches to him. He gives him a book. He makes him a devotee. And then the tiger is a devotee. And then the tiger says, Sharira Vidya Char. So, okay. So this is my only Hare Krishna joke. So anyway, even tigers come, and once also Mahaprabhu, Hare Krishna, there was a tiger lying in his way, and I think he slapped him or kicked him. Go away here, chant Hare Krishna, and also tiger chanted Hare Krishna. And at one point many different animals came, and they were so ecstatic, they also started to dance and chant, and it said they kissed each other. The Chaitanya Charitamrita says they kissed the elephant, kissed the deer, and the deer kissed the tiger. And it was like whole, far out scene. So it's nicely described here. And Balabhadra Bhattacharya and this other one, they were like, for Mahaprabhu it's normal, right? For him it's like, he sees the soul and he's not the Lord, no problem. But for those two, they were probably quite amazed by the whole incidents. So this part we have here in this chapter, and then Mahaprabhu comes out of the forest after some long time. Here's this. Indeed, the tigers and deer began to embrace one another, and touching mouth they began to kiss. Yeah, so it's here. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu saw all this fun, he began to smile. He liked it. Finally, he left the animals and continued on his way. And there was one verse quoted, where was it actually? A very nice verse here. Krishna Das Kaviraj Goswami, when the animals come, he quotes a verse from the 10th canto. Blessed are all these foolish deer because they have approached Maharaj Nanda's son, who is gorgeously dressed and is playing on his flute. Indeed, both the does and the bucks worship the Lord with looks of love and affection. This is a verse Mahaprabhu recited when he saw the animals. He remembered this verse from the 10th canto. So then Mahaprabhu comes after some time out of the forest and he comes to the city of Varanasi. Yeah, so Varanasi is here mentioned as Kashi. Kashi is one of the most ancient, and I've never been there actually. You've probably been there, right? Must be interesting, huh? Kashi, one of the most ancient places in India, right? It's actually Shiva place, and nowadays it's called Varanasi, no? And at that time it was called Benares, no? Benares, right? So, and Mahaprabhu comes there, and there he goes to a bathing ghat, as far as I remember, and then he meets Tapana Mishra. Mahaprabhu is there in the city, and suddenly this devotee, Tapana Mishra, sees Mahaprabhu, and he's like shocked. Whoa, where are you coming from? Because Tapana Mishra is an old friend of Mahaprabhu from Navadvip, and he once approached Mahaprabhu and asked him, please tell me about the absolute truth and this and that, and Mahaprabhu sent him to Varanasi. It's very peculiar. I never understood that point, if someone knows more to that. Because why is he sending him off, especially to Varanasi, which is a more or less Mayavad place? And he actually says afterwards also, Mahaprabhu asked him, how are you doing? He says, everything is fine, but here in Varanasi I only hear Brahman, Maya, all these Mayavad terms. No talk of Krishna. No talk of Krishna. So Tapana Mishra is amazed. Actually, and what is the temple? Bindu Madhava temple, right? Bindu Madhava temple. Mahaprabhu took darshan at the Bindu Madhava temple. And Prabhupada says this is one of the most ancient temples in Varanasi, and Tapana Mishra is, as I said, is completely surprised to see Mahaprabhu suddenly there. Right? He wasn't, and was very happy, of course, very, very happy to see him. And then he brings him home with the two servants, and they have a nice talk. And he worships Mahaprabhu, and then he worships Bhatacharya, makes puja to them. Because we sometimes think puja is, only for the Lord. Puja is, of course, it's for the Lord, but it's a ceremony of respect to respectable, honorable persons. And in Vedic society, an honorable person is a guest. Mustn't even be, of course, if it's an exalted personality, there's more puja going on. But some reception and menial attitude towards a guest is given to any guest. Doesn't matter who he is. This is actually culture. Prabhupada calls this culture. There's once Prabhupada was on a morning walk and in India. They came back from the morning walk to their car. He was with Shyama Sundar. And Shyama Sundar had the key to the car. What car was it?
Mercedes?
No, in India, what car was Ambassador, It's interesting, when I was first time in India, which is not so long ago, maybe 15 years ago, I remember actually all the cars were Ambassador cars. Just 15 years ago, now it's different. It's changed so much. Now you see all kinds of cars, but 15 years ago or 18, as far as I remember, there was just Ambassador. They only had one car, like in DDR, they had only the Trabi. They had only this Ambassador, as far as I remember, and maybe this Tata Sumo, this bigger one, but not much more. So, but in Maruti, yeah. But now it's everything, yeah. And in Prabhupada's time, probably everyone had this Ambassador car. I don't know if they had even different colors. I only remember white Ambassador cars. So anyway, Shyama Sundar comes with the key, wants to open the car, and says, Prabhupada, the key doesn't work anymore. And they were standing in front of the car, he tried to fix this, and suddenly two Indian gentlemen came, and they were smiling a bit and talking with Prabhupada, and Prabhupada, and then said to Shyamasundar, this is not our car, it's theirs. Right, because he mixed the cars, and said, oh really? And then he said, they are very nice, they want to drive me. They want to drive me. And then they stepped in their car, and the devotees went in the other car, and they went back. And then Prabhupada said, this is culture, right? In your country, they would have called the police. In our country, they say, please take the car. It's yours, Swamiji. Right? Interesting. Huh? They were very happy, actually. They were not, if you go here to someone's car and try to open it on the parking lot, and you go, what are you doing with my car? And then I'm not imitating the others, because I'm also like that. If someone steps too close to my car, I was in Cologne recently, sometime, and we were sitting in a car, actually in the back seat, and these guys, they were just leaning against my car and rocking the car. Cologne in front of the temple, they don't care about anything anyway. There, all right, crazy place. So anyway, where have I been? Culture, yeah. So he was worshipping them and very happy. And then his friend came. Who is the friend of Tapanamisha? Who remembers? Who is the friend who was living with Tapanamisha in Varanasi? Chandra, Sheikh, Acharya. He was also living there. And who is Chandra, Sheikh, Acharya? Who remembers? He was older than Mahaprabhu. Actually, he was his uncle. He was the husband of the sister of Shachimata. Very interesting. So he was very happy to see Mahaprabhu also. And actually it said when Jagannath Mishra left the planet, he was kind of his father. He took care of the family of Shachimata. And when you go to Mayapur, there's one of the most important places is, how's it called, the Chaitanya Mat, right? Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati's place. I think it's called Chaitanya Mat. Huh? And this is actually the house of Chandra Sheikh Acharya. So Bhaktisiddhanta built the temple there where formerly was the house of Chandra Sheikh Acharya. So he was very happy also, and they had very good time there with Mahaprabhu. And then one Brahmana came from Maharashtra. A Maharashtrian Brahmana came, who was more or less, Mahaprabhu gave him later also initiation, and he was convinced, Mahaprabhu was so ecstatic, wonderful, this and that. And he went later to Prakashananda Saraswati Thakur. And this is one of the most important dialogues in the whole text, when later on, Mahaprabhu, when he comes back from Vrindavan, this is then later in the chapter, has this big talk with Prakashananda Saraswati. But this Brahmana went to Prakashananda Saraswati and told him about Mahaprabhu. He was like, wow, he's so great and this, and he told the biggest atheist in town about Mahaprabhu, and this is where Prakashananda said, you're all sentimentalists. He's not a sannyasi. What's it called? A Bahuka or something, as it said. Huh? He's a sentimentalist, he's not studying Vedanta, and you should actually also study Vedanta. What are you doing? What are you hanging out with all these, crazy people? And Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, he was such a great scholar, and now he's crazy too. He's all nonsense. And when he heard this, Brahmana, he was very hurt, actually. Very hurt. And then he later went to Mahaprabhu and he told him that. How this great Acharya of Varanasi, you kind of was like the main priest or main scholar, main person there, thinks, and Mahaprabhu just smiled. He was not taken seriously. Not, what does he think he is? He was very, very detached. Who is he? So, and then Mahaprabhu left Varanasi because he's on the way to Vrindavan. And these two, actually three, Tapan Mishra, Chandra Sheikh Acharya, and this Maharashtrian Brahmana, he wanted to go with him. And he said, no, you have to stay here. Please stay here. I will come back on my way back. So then Mahaprabhu leaves and goes further to Vrindavan. And the closer he comes to Vrindavan, actually to Mathura, the more ecstatic he becomes. And then they travel also somehow or other next to the Yamuna. And when he sees the Yamuna, he's like, always jumping in the Yamuna, immersed, and the two have always take care of him because sometimes he's unconscious in the Yamuna. He's too ecstatic. And then he comes to Mathura, and the first temple he visits is the Keshava Temple. Is it called Keshava Temple, right? And it's the Janmastan. It's called Janmastan, right? The birthplace of Krishna. And there Mahaprabhu enters the temple, sees the deity, and then he goes mad. And makes long kirtan in ecstasy, and he's crying and long time, and everything. Krishna's here, and suddenly there is a Brahmana dancing next to Mahaprabhu. And this is where he's called this a Sanodiya Brahmana. It's a Sanodiya Brahmana. And I will explain why Sanodiya. And he's not just dancing next to Mahaprabhu, he's dancing kind of like Mahaprabhu. And not just like Mahaprabhu, but kind of with almost the same intensity of devotion and ecstasy. And then when they kind of meet and talk to each other, because Mahaprabhu is very amazed. Actually, they are amazed of each other. In one sense, they're amazed of each other, and then it comes out that this Sanodiya Brahmana is a disciple of Madhavendra Puri. And when Mahaprabhu hears that, he offers obeisances to him. And then he says, "Oh, you shouldn't offer obeisances to me. You're a sannyasi." He says, "No, you are a disciple of Madhavendra Puri. My guru, you are a disciple of my Param Guru. You are like my guru." Because my guru, Ishwara Puri, is a disciple of Madhavendra Puri too. And the important point is, this Brahmana could be only that ecstatic because he was a disciple of Madhavendra Puri. He gave him like this bhakti. And this is why Mahaprabhu had such an immediate, intimate connection with him. Because they were kind of, not on the same level, but on the same ecstasy in one sense. So, and it's called Sanodiya. Prabhupada explains, actually quotes Bhaktivinoda Thakur, that there are in northwest India 3 kinds of Vaishyas. And first were the Agrawals, and then 2 others, I forgot the name, I could look it up. 2 other names. And he said the Agrawals, they were first class Vaishyas. But these other 2, they were not first class, and they were drinking wine. This was kind of a caste of Vaishyas who were being a little bit more into sense gratification, even drinking wine, which is kind of impure for Vedic society, kind of low grade. And the Sanodiya Brahmana, they are the Brahmanas of that caste. Interesting, huh? They are the Brahmanas of that caste. Because they are Vaishyas, they were rich, they were merchants, and so they had their Brahmanas. Of course, you have some guidance, some priests for yagyas and puja and whatever, and these were their Brahmanas. And this is why these Brahmanas were considered low class. So Sanodiya Brahmana is kind of a low class Brahmana. And Prabhupada explains the word Sanodiya is also connected to Suvarna Vanik. And Suvarna Vanik are the gold merchant and bankers. Suvarna means, I think, gold, right? And Vanik means the merchant. So he says also there's a connection with these words. And so this Brahmana was a Sanodiya Brahmana, meaning a Brahmana who took care of low-class Vaishyas who were always drunk. No, probably not so extreme, but somehow or other, it goes in this direction. They were a little bit easy. And this is why he was low-class. And then, now we come to our verse actually, finally. I skipped a couple of details, and maybe I wanted to read a bit more, but I think it's okay. We are in the flow, it's okay. But then, this Mahaprabhu, this Brahmana or Mahaprabhu, I forgot. I think the Brahmana requested, please come to my house and eat in my house. Because this is, as I said, again, this is culture. You want to invite guests. Now we lock our doors. We hope nobody knocks, nobody rings, right? And if we have a dog. Barks. Yeah, this is not culture, right? Actually, in the 5th canto, it's explained there's a hell. There are 22 hells, I think. And there's one hell, and there is an eagle who repeatedly plucks out your eyes. And this hell is for those who look with an evil eye to guests, especially to uninvited guests. It's called atiti. Atiti means uninvited guests. Suddenly the guest appears and you look, oh, what are you doing here? Why are you coming to my house? What do you want? There's a hell for those grihastas. Because grihasta means, oh, I guess one will come, let me cook for you. We want to eat something. This is my house, how's it called? Mikasa Sukasa. How's it called? Mikasa is Sukasa. My house is your house. This is grihasta. Not easy. I know. It's very nice that we are far away. Yeah, you like your comfort, your house, this and that, but a grihasta shouldn't think it's my house. Actually, it should be for service, for guests. That's why Prabhupada said, my father every day had at least, 5 guests. Yeah, that was culture. It's important, it's the dharma of grihasta, because grihasta gets attached to his stuff, to his money, to his house. It's natural. So this is why he should engage in service, because in the end of life you don't want to think about your cute little flat, right? With your cute little dog. Mm-hmm. Next life you are, next life you are the dog. Yeah, it's like that. So, please, Mahaprabhu, please come to my house. But there's one consideration. He is a Sanodiya Brahmana. And it said, Sanodiya Brahmanas are not allowed to cook for sannyasis. This was a rule. He's not allowed. But Mahaprabhu, no, I think, maybe I'll look it up, whatever. But the discussion was then, but you are not allowed to cook. But Mahaprabhu was not considering that. He said, no, you are not a Sanodiya Brahmana. You are a pure devotee. In your house, Madhavendra Puri was eating. How could I say no? And he said, he ordered him, you cook for me. It's that here, you cook for me. And he was very ecstatic. And then Mahaprabhu speaks this verse. And this is in the discussion. This is now the context for this verse. 184. Actually, he speaks 3 verses, one of which is very famous actually. So, where was it? This is the verse. So here this verse. Puri Goshani Tomara Gare Karyachana Bhiksha More Tumi Bhiksha Deya E Mora Shiksha. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, Madhavendra Puri has already taken lunch at your place. Therefore you may cook and give me the food. That is my instruction. Because the Brahmana, he was actually more hesitant. He said, I cannot cook for you. I would like to, but I cannot. Yeah. And then the Brahmana said, it is my great fortune to offer food to you food. You are the Supreme Lord, and being in the transcendental position, you are not restricted in any way. Foolish people will blaspheme you, but I shall not tolerate the words of such mischievous people. Yeah, foolish people, they will say, this is not a Brahman. He has eaten in this house of this guy, of this fallen people. He entered, you will never go into his house. Yeah? Listen. Yeah. So, and then Mahaprabhu speaks this verse. Yeah? This is the verse as direct, to establish that their Vedas, Puranas, and great learned sages are not always in agreement with one another. Consequently, there are different religious principles. And then, a devotee's behavior establishes the true purpose of religious principles. The behavior of Madhavendra Puri Goswami is the essence of such religious principles. Meaning, and then he says this verse, Tarka pratishta shtutaya vipina nasa vrishya yasya matangna bhinam dharmasya natvam nihitam goyanam mahajana yena gatasa panta. Dry arguments are inconclusive. A great personality whose opinion does not differ from others is not considered a great sage. Simply by studying the Vedas, which are variegated, one cannot come to the right path by which religious principles are understood. The solid truth of religious principles is hidden in the heart of an unadulterated, self-realized person. Consequently, as the Shastras confirm, one should accept whatever progressive path the Mahajans advocate. So he speaks these 3 verses, and also in this verse he more or less says, The Vedas might say, I shouldn't eat in your house. Shruti, Smriti, all them. But then there are other instructions in the Vedas which negate that. So in that way you cannot come to the truth. But the truth lies in a pure devotee. Mahajana yena gatasa panta. We should follow the path of the Mahajanas. Madhavendra Puri is the greatest of all personalities. When he has eaten in your house, I can easily follow his example and cannot be blamed. Even in opposition to the Shastra. And Shastras through these verses actually relativiert sich selbst. Especially in this verse. Mahajana yena gatasa panta. And we have the same thing in this verse in the Brahma Samhita. Oh, where was it? Where is it said? Vedeshu chaudulabam adulabam atma bhaktao. Vedeshu chaudulabam. Yeah. It's very hard to understand the truth through the Vedas. It's very rare to understand the truth through the Vedas, but it's easy through a bhakta. Interesting point. Because we always say Veda is supreme. But actually, the bhakta is supreme, the devotee is supreme. But how does the devotee become supreme? Of course, through following the Vedas. So he's the one who understands Vedas, follows that, realizes, and then in such a person, Vedic knowledge is, as said here, the behavior of Madhavendra Puri Goswami is the essence of such religious principles. This is the essence. Not dry knowledge, as this other verse says. Dry arguments are inconclusive. Meaning you can know hundreds and thousands of shlokas, but if there is no realization of any of them, what's the use of it? And I don't know if it's only my problem, maybe you'll see it similar, that some of us might be intellectual, we like to learn and study and read, but even more important is to understand and realize it. Because sometimes I think, oh, I know this and that, I know it already, but actually I know nothing. Isn't it? This knowing is only one step. Realizing is another. It's the more important. So this should be then also in that sense a push for us to become more serious and to not be satisfied with book learning. Not that it's not important. We have to know something. We have to preach, we have to speak, we have to know, yes. But this is only one part of it. Even more important, it's more important to really realize one verse from Bhagavad Gita than to know 700 by heart. Imagine you can choose out of 700 verses of Bhagavad Gita, one to have realization from. Which would you take? That I would really like to understand it. Dehinusmin yatadihi. The first of all the verses to understand I'm not the body. Things like this. Hare Krishna. So I hope to give you, it was like a broad context. We really kind of summarized now 184 verses, actually 186. We took the other two there also. And found it very interesting. I was very happy to speak about this, and even more nice it was for me to read this and think about it, because it gave me lots of taste and inspiration to read Chaitanya Charitamrita, especially in these upcoming days, but also afterwards. It's a very amazing book, so many things inside, so exciting, so helpful, and really helps us to give us Mahaprabhu. It's really like this. I just read this yesterday to prepare for this talk, but what I felt yesterday, because I'm not reading Chaitanya Charitamrita right now, it gives us Mahaprabhu. I kind of had this feeling, Mahaprabhu comes very close to Chaitanya Charitamrita. Very powerful. Hare Krishna. Thank you so much. Any questions or additions? Yes?
I just said the same to my wife yesterday. I was preparing and reading about Navadvip, and suddenly all the memories about Mayapur and Mahaprabhu, and Mahaprabhu comes very close in my life. Read about it. It's really amazing.
It's very amazing. Yeah. And this is also the power, especially of Prabhupada, who can give us really Krishna in all its different forms. Good. Thank you so much.